We have covered some absolute fantastic Jim Carrey movies, from A Christmas Carol to Dumb and Dumber to Ace Ventura Pet Detective. Now we're checking out Liar Liar. Is it any good? Let's find out in just a second, but before we get into all that jazz, hit the like button. That would be much appreciated. So for me, Liar Liar is an absolute fantastic film, and for me, very underrated. I'm just going to say that because Jim Carrey's films that people love and know is really Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, and The Mask are the main three that get talked about. Obviously, this one was in that time period where Jim Carrey was absolutely phenomenal. I think that the idea of the movie is absolutely bonkers, but absolutely works at the same time. It's basically about a guy who can't stop lying through his teeth, and he's ruining his family, he's ruining his relationship with his kid. It feels like Jingle All the Way if you've seen Jingle All the Way, and it feels like that because from our perspective that he's letting the kid down, he's letting his former ex down because she's got to keep saying, oh, your dad's coming to pick you up, your dad's doing this for you, and then he gets out of it by lying. However, that all changes when Max, his kid, decides to make a wish on his birthday so that his dad can't lie, and that is an interesting perspective because that changes the course of the next day moving forward, as Jim Carrey, who is a lawyer in this film, he can't lie, and being a lawyer, obviously that's going to be pretty difficult, so it makes the movie even more special, and seeing all these different thoughts that he had being spilled out of his mouth and unable to stop that from being spilled out of his mouth, like when going on in the elevator or walking down the hallway, he's saying all these things that he thinks about these people out loud, in which is so funny because that is sort of like relatable. If you're walking down the street, you might have a perception of somebody straight off the bat, or if you're talking with somebody, but you won't go out and say it. And this is what Jim Carrey's character Fletcher could not stop doing, and I think that was the comedy element in the whole film, and that's what made this film so special in my personal opinion. And as Jim Carrey as the lawyer as well, that added a whole dynamic to the whole movie and to the idea of how much not being able to lie affects his job and his life moving in the right direction. And I think that was such a weird and wacky story that only Jim Carrey would be able to control and be able to be the main star in that, because it just seems like such a simple plot line, but he develops it into such a classic film through his acting and through his energy and charisma and everything like that. Makes it something quite rewatchable and something quite funny that you always go back to when thinking about Jim Carrey movies. You've also got this underlayer of what the film is about, in which is about the fact that Jerry is potentially coming in to be the stepdad for Max, in which is obviously something that Fletcher does not want because he thinks that he should be in that role, but he just doesn't have the time or effort to give a fuck about doing that for his kid. And since he's prioritizing his work before his family, that causes a rift between the two, in which ends up leading to the fact that Jerry wants to move the entire family to go and live in Boston. And that's a problem because obviously that's a long way away and he would not be able to see Max again. However, since Max felt let down so many times, he was even up for leaving. He was up for moving away because his dad was just letting him down so many times, and he didn't want that to happen again. And even with him not being able to lie, it made it even worse for him until Fletcher realizes that he needs to change and that he needs to think about his family more. And that's why the ending is so great, because it's like the full circle of him going through this horrible day of him not being able to lie, upsetting most of his co-workers and everything like that, to him finally getting that opportunity to go and make it up to his family, in which they're on the plane, they're about to set off and put this behind them. But then that's where he jumps on these weird stair things, which you normally get on the airplane to. He uses those, drives it, and sort of drives alongside the plane and risks his whole life and his whole reputation and his whole thing of potentially being arrested just so that he can see his family again and maybe to persuade them to stay, because he will change. And that's what happened. But to me, I think that storyline was so fantastic. So to summarise Lie Lie then, for me, I think this was a fantastic film, 8.3 out of 10 and a classic film. So let me know your thoughts. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it terrible? Is it amazing? Let us know all that jazz down in the comments down below. If you haven't done so already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and I shall see you fine folks in the next one. Later.